What's up, guys? So just a random video today. My son's been running my previous 6700K system with a GTX 650 Ti, and I recently got him a 1650 Super on FB Market. It's apparently 1 year old that was used in an editing rig, and it was a fairly older guy that sold it to me, and he said that it's been like it wasn't even used for gaming much. It was mainly purpose was for some kind of editing, and he did have 32 gigs of RAM to sell as well. So it kind of suited the story. But when I went to test it, I don't know much about the sensors on the 1650. I've never owned one, and I only saw the GPU temp, which is what I tested initially. And I don't know if this has been repasted secretly, like, or at any point he said that it's never been, pulled apart or anything. And it still had the sticker on the screw, which I made a mark in now. But anyway, the temp seemed fine from initial testing. The card seemed stable for about half a week, and then it started crashing in PUBG, and the temps were like 50 degrees. So I don't know like what the issue could have been. And I thought maybe it was the RAM or something else was unstable. So I checked everything on the system, did some stability testing for the CPU and the RAM. The RAM's perfect, passed 25 cycles of testmem5. And I looked into GPU-Z because MSI Afterburner was not showing any other sensors than the edge temp. And GPU-Z had the edge temp, but also had a hotspot temp, which was hitting 70 degrees in the game menu with the edge temp at 50 degrees. So 20 degree delta for such a low TDP card. I'm guessing the paste has not dried up, but pumped out over time if it's the original application, or it was just never good to begin with, or possibly it has been repasted at some point and the paste is just no longer good. And yeah, 70 degree delta, and that was obviously rising when he's actually playing because it was doing 70 degrees at the menu on this hotspot temp. And I'm not sure, it could be the VRAM. The hotspot could be a VRAM sensor, but it doesn't specify. Usually it is the hotspot on the core. And there'll just be no VRAM sensor if you can't see a memory junction temp. So I've taken out these 4 screws. It looks fairly standard. I've never messed with this model of card before, but I just wanted to share it for anyone else that does own one of these cards. So taking off the screws, it did come off very easily. The card has been warmed up because he was running, he was gaming on it not long ago, just like less than half an hour ago. And you can see here that it is a very thin paste application, and the paste is really runny. So it's even run off the sides here. Okay, so it looks like the problem is fairly easy to identify, and it is the VRAM was possibly overheating, and the thermal paste is just old. It has all pumped out whatever was on the die. There is, there's kind of bare spots. It's kind of spotty there. And it does look like the original paste application, though, because this is a perfect square here. So that's not pump out, but down at the bottom, there is some pump out. So maybe this card was like mounted vertically or mounted in such a way that the paste ran out. You see how it's ran downwards? It's even on the PCB, like it's just ran down. I don't know, because if it's resting on a flat level, like in a case flat, horizontal, it shouldn't be running down in that direction. It's almost like it was mounted with the power facing up, like with the HDMI connector facing up. So that's a bit weird. So I'm just going to clean this up, repaste it. Now, the pretty lame thing about this model, it's a GTX 1650 PALIT brand. The VRAM has no contact with the heatsink at all. So these 2 chips here, there's like a good 1 or 2 centimeters gap that you can't fill with a thermal pad. So these 2 chips are getting nothing. These 2, and then these 2. So these are all it's a 4 gig card, so these are all 1 gig chips. And these 2 have nothing, and these 2, where they would be contacting somewhere here on the heatsink, have no pad or anything on them either. So the VRAM's just getting no cooling whatsoever. Even if there is no sensor, and there is it can handle up to 100 degrees, if you're running a texture heavy game that does a lot of streaming, you got 4 gig can be enough for 1080p. The VRAM could also be heating up. So that's another downside that you ideally don't want. So yeah, I'm going to clean this up, and we're going to, oh look, my torch was overheating, sorry. We're going to clean this up, and I'm just going to repaste it, basically. 99% isopropyl this time. Just going to clean this up a bit. It doesn't need to be cleaned up around the PCB, because most thermal compounds are not conductive at all. So you don't actually have to waste your time. Because see all this green PCB area? I don't know if you can see it on camera anymore without the light. Maybe I can put a white background on my... Right, if I can get a white background. That's not helping. Maybe paint. Paint has a white background, doesn't it? Yeah, it's kind of... Sorry, I've got the camera blocking half my screen too, so you can actually see. I'm trying to use my monitor light, sorry. What we'll do is I'll just... You guys have lived without this being so big. I'm just going to use some of my ultra-wide monitor to give me some light. Old school method of getting light. Because I don't have a proper studio light or anything like that. This is just, you know, backyard, someone's basement type of thing. So wipe that up, and then I'll switch to microfiber, a little microfiber cloth here that I used for doing CPUs. Just polish up the core a little bit. And what we're going to do is, I'm going to wipe each of these RAM chips because I'm going to do them as well. I'm going to give them something. Even if it's just thermal paste, like if it depends if it's touching. I don't know, because there's no mark here on any of the heatsink that these two chips would get anything at all. Now, if I just try to take a look here, though, it does look like the two cutouts where the pad is actually do, like I'm just, I want to see the clearance. I'm trying to see if there's a gap, like how many millimeters of a thermal pad might I need to side. Look at that. Maybe you can't see it. Wait, I'm gonna try to get the right angle here. Sorry, this light is way too bright. It's like the sun. There is a noticeable gap. So basically, just looking at this gap, eyeballing it, I would say 0.5 to 1 millimeter, maybe 1.5. So the memory is higher or lower, I should say, than the socket itself. So that means like, you know, 1 millimeter or so, 1.5 millimeter. And I could actually see the difference even just staring at it with these 3 millimeter. Oh, I don't know. That might be too thick. 3 millimeter pads. And I can have a quick something of it just to see if I can flatten these a bit. They can be compressed a little bit. They've got some room for compression. Mainly for these two here. I put a thermal pad. It is thick. Actually, just trying to eyeball it. There's the one with the thermal pad here. I'm trying to make it level with the socket. And I don't know if you can see, like when it's straight, the socket height is here. The thermal pad's here. It puts it literally level when I compress it a little bit. So, I mean, as long as the heatsink can push down enough, it should be fine. 3 millimeters, I guess. There we go. So they just look like that. You can see the two there. And for these two, we're going to check something else. 7 millimeter gap. Most thermal pads go up to about 3 millimeters. So yeah, it's double what most thermal pads are. These are a little bit taller. Oh no, yeah, it's 5 millimeters. Same, basically. So we're just going to stick these on to those two that are passively cooled through the heatsink. If I can get this adhesive to come off properly, it was peeling wrong. There we go. Also want to make sure that I'm not accidentally shorting it, because there are some little SMD something or others right near the VRAM chip. I don't know if you can see it there, but there's some little, it's not actually touching. It's fine. So I overhanged it on the other side because there's nothing there on this side. Because they are a little bit oversized, but you know, the spare ones I had, and they fit the height requirement, which is more important. And the other one looks fine too. Make sure nothing's touching. I'm going to push these down with a bit of pressure for a little bit. And cool. Should be fine. Alright, I want the camera in a better spot, but this will do. Just a liberal amount because it is a bare die, and bare dies are more slippery, so if you have more on there, then it'll wait, is this clean? If you have more on there, it will help catch the early pump out. So when it goes through the first few heat cycles, if you've got excess around the edges, the excess will actually stop it pumping out so quickly. If you didn't already know that. Even though people say pump out's a myth, I've tested it, especially at high temperatures, it will pump out faster. At least on RDNA GPUs. I don't know about AMD because about NVIDIA, because they hide all the temperature sensors, and they don't give us a proper junction or memory junction on a lot of their cards. And the rest could be the card I'm using. But the way that you spread it, or the way that I spread it, is I just treat it like rendering. If any tradies are here, just render it on there and try to get it as even as possible, and that'll do. Like, just to cover that general area. Doesn't have to be perfect. Anyway, Noctua NTH1, and then what I'm going to do is when I put this down, I'm just going to make sure I feel good pressure, and I'll try to eyeball it, but that's a little bit harder to show on camera. I can just show you what it looks like when I'm doing it. Oh, and I'll reconnect this fan before I start. There we go, the fan's back in. I just got some paste on my hand, good on me. Yeah, you can see what I've done. I've put on little heat sinks and on the two, and fresh paste, and some 3mm thermal pads might be pushing it, but provided the screws tighten down enough, I did squeeze them and they had enough give. I feel like they had enough give. And as well, like when you put the when you put it back down, you can feel it stick if it's really, you know. So those pads are making all right contact. And let's see. The way that I can tell if the sorry, I can't even see me talking. The way I can tell if the core and the die thermal paste is actually making decent contact is when you go to kind of try to lift it a little bit. Like, you don't actually lift it, but when you try to lift it, you feel that there's a little bit of stick. There's a little bit of stick feeling, and if you can't feel that, then there's a good chance that it is hard though with fresh paste. If you can't feel any stick at all, there's a good chance the pads are too thick and it's not actually touching properly. And I guess if you're being really, like, you really don't want to open it up again, you can just literally lift it and see. I'll do it on camera, because you can lift it and see if it's getting contact, and if it's not, you'll see that the core won't have any lift off. It's not, like, on the side with the pads will have like very little contact at all, and that seems to be the case. So I pushed down on it too. So, you know, I can't expect the screws are going to tighten it down that much more. These pads may just be a little too thick. I can try squeezing them out a little bit, but because they do have some give in them, they're just going to be bigger, which isn't a problem because they're not conductive pads. And if I can squeeze them out just right, because it's different, the type of force for squeezing them out, like when you use your fingers, is different to the heatsink pushing down. There's not actually any pressure here on these corners of the heatsink. Sorry, there's no pressure here where the pads are to actually help clamp them down. So squeezing with your fingers is actually better because it spreads the pad. Like, see how the pad's spread out now? That was a bigger square before, thicker square. And now that it's spread a little bit, we'll see what happens if I can get more proper die contact. Sorry, it's touching my keyboard. And when I put it here, okay, now I'll push where I feel there should be pressure, which actually should be here on this edge of the PCB. And I'll push in the middle a little bit, trying not to touch any of the circuitry, just on the bare PCB thread traces, I guess, but you're not going to break a trace by pushing with your finger. And if I do that and lift it off, we should see if that squeezing the pads out. Oh yeah, like I can't even. It's holding now. That can't be the pads are over here, right, on this side. And now, like when I try to lift it, it doesn't want to come up. That's from me just squeezing it with my fingers. So I'd call that a good mount already, and we'll have the temperature testing to check that. I'm not going to bother taking it off to show you because I can just tell, like, even see how there's no screws in it now, and then now that I've pushed on it, if I won't do it too long, but if I take my fingers away, it's not falling off. So that is the thermal paste and the core contact keeping it together. So that's one trick you can do. It probably won't work with the really big heatsinks, so the really big PCB cards, because there's too much weight for it to hold from just the thermal paste. But it's like that thermal paste must be doing something because thermal paste will grip. It'll hold together, and we're just going to screw that all back up. And I just want it to start threading. I don't want it to go too far because I try to do it all evenly, and this is just to distribute the paste spread. Like, you don't want to tighten down one corner and then the next corner and have all the paste shift. Okay, and so it's normally an X pattern like this. I'm going a bit overboard here, but just to show you. Cross pattern. So I got one diagonal across, next one, it's already tight, next one, back. They're all already almost fully down. And then you can put a little bit more force on the last bit, but just don't overdo it. The springs, they're usually good. Like, the spring will act as a washer basically, and yeah, can't really see with the camera, but I can just see here that the core looks flush with the heatsink, and then on the side with the thermal pads, they are fully touching as well. The thermal pad is touching the heatsink, and then my added heatsinks, which you can see. Sorry, if I angle the light at the right angle, you can see the added in heatsinks there. They're the two that I added. And there is plenty of gap to add them. It's like they left it there on purpose almost to add some heatsinks on those extra VRAM chips. Now, the reason I did it is as well, because some of you may not know this, but the 1650 Super, not the 1650, but the Super's using GDDR6, which runs hotter. So they should have improved the cooling to match, because GDDR6 is basically what a lot of the high-end cards are using. So it's only 4 gigabytes of it, but it runs hotter, and why haven't they upgraded the cooling of it? And yeah, that's the card there. It's a PALIT 1650 Super. Alrighty, so I'm going to put this back in my son's rig, and we're going to see if it runs stable and if the temperatures are improved. I can only see the hotspot temp, so it's only really going to tell us about the core, but hopefully, like, if anything, I've only improved the VRAM temperatures. So really the core and the hotspot will be the main thing to go off. What we want to see is the hotspot temperature is lower because it was up at 70 and it should be down at 60 or maybe less because, you know, PUBG 60 FPS. I had it capped at 60 FPS. It shouldn't have been hitting 70 degrees. Alrighty, so I'll edit that and bring it over to this computer and clip it all together for you guys. So I'm going to do a recording on here. I don't know if I can record actually on 1650 Super. Otherwise I'll use my phone and show you guys. So just stand there. Alrighty. So this is the 6700K build and the rebuilt 1650 Super. Just gonna slot it back in here. It was already working, it was just crashing under PUBG and something was overheating. Fairly sure it was the VRAM, but it could have also, I don't think it was the core. The core was running hot, but if the core was hot and the VRAM had no cooling, then yeah, the VRAM, maybe that also explains why 1650 Supers mysteriously disappeared from a lot of markets. They all got RMA'd. Cable. And yeah, we got a picture, so it's working. And GPU Z seems to be the most reliable. I couldn't get the hotspot to come up in Afterburner, even with the latest version for the 1650 Super. And before, the temperatures were hotspot around 70, and that was under load, like in the game menu. And I don't know if this is going to be improved or it's going to be worse because I did use some dodgy thermal pads. I think the paste application was okay, but we'll find out now. So yeah, just see if you can play now, buddy, and we'll get a report when you're done.
Which is my character close?
Me, because you had unlocks and you hadn't equipped them.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like it's running stable. The temperature's at 47 degrees at 65% fan speed. %, lows at 60, 0.1's at 41. I wish I'd actually recorded that beforehand, but it was just crashing, like he wasn't even getting into a team fight. Oh. Got one. Get out, there might be more. Reload your gun. Reload. Eli, reload your bullets. You've only got 8 in the chamber. 8 in the mag, I should say. 1 in the chamber. Can you hear anyone? You'll hear them on your headset.
And here's something there.
I don't know, go look for armor and stuff. There. Oh, you got him. Nice. Careful, there could be more. So he knows how to use the mic. It's push to talk.
Get out. Number 3. Get out. Get out of the car.
Yeah, I want to see him get through a whole match though, because he couldn't play even one match earlier. As soon as he started playing PUBG, it started crashing on him. And the temperature is stable at 47. It has not gone up. It is holding 47 at 66% utilization on the GPU, 65% fan speed. Or it says 64%, but whatever. I don't know what MSI Afterburner is, how it's reading it. And the VRAM usage is at 3.9 gigs with high texture settings for 1080p. I had it on Ultra before, so that would have also been causing more texture swapping and streaming, which will overheat GDDR6. Where are they getting shot from? Oh, behind him. Yeah. Just wait, Eli, wait, because he's fighting. Just wait, buddy. So yeah, just looking at that VRAM usage, I think ultra textures was also contributing to the VRAM getting too hot. With high, at least it's not pushing 4 gig anymore. Heal up, buddy, your health's low. Use your first aid kit. I'll just try to zoom in on the metrics for you. So yeah, you can see it's pretty good, except when they crashed the car and caused an FPS drop when they were driving too fast and crashed. But yeah, you can see the GPU temp on the edge is 47 degrees. I will check the hotspot at the end. CPU's at 43. Liquid metal, Conductonaut. Yeah, you can see it's very stable, and you see the VRAM usage around 3.9 gigs, so it's just a match for this card. Alrighty guys, I'm going to end this here. Eli, can you hide in the house for a sec? Hide in the house. Hide in the house. I want to check something really quick before I go. The hotspot's max is 60 degrees in-game. So maybe the menu just runs 70 degrees. I don't know, it's weird. Or it could have been the Firmark. The test in GPU-Z was more intensive than actual PUBG. So we're seeing 50 and 60 degrees. It is a 10 degrees drop over before the repaste. And turn off this benchmark. Let go of the buttons, buddy. I'll turn off the benchmark. You don't need that running. And let's close that so you can have the full screen. Let him play. And yeah, it's definitely stable now. So cool. Alright, guys. Well, thanks for watching. And yeah, just a random video. Yes, random thing to share. Bye-bye.